All right, so what's up, everyone? Welcome to Tea with Doug G. If you don't know me, my name's Doug Gooden, and y'all, I am so excited this week to welcome my incredible guest, Mr. Joe Nedza. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you,
Uh,
Doug.
so Joe, so I'm going to give you just a second. Tell the folks who you are, what you do. Uh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doug. So I'm Joe Nedza. I own a restaurant in Athens called Nedza's. The name is not, I didn't pick that name because it was the first name I thought of. I literally thought of like 150 different names and they were all taken. So I stuck with what everyone called me, which was Nedza. Um, I started selling food in a food truck about 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, we've grown, and now we have a restaurant. I opened it during COVID, which was very interesting. But yeah, I love food. I love community. I love the outdoors. Big fan of mountains and being competitive.
Hey, we love to hear it. We love to hear it. For those of you who are outside of Athens, Georgia, Ned's is kind of like an institution here on in Athens, especially on the UGA campus. I mean, Joe, I think more people know about Nedza's than probably where the chapel actually is on campus. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I would say I think it's very safe to say that you have become like an institution on campus.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome. I hope so. I hope it's not just you.
I don't think so, but yeah, all right. Well, Joe, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, first question of the night is from Brandon Revis. He's a friend of the show, and Brandon wants to know what is your favorite excuse me, what is your favorite pastry to eat/cook?
Oh man, it's weird. So pastry. Um, I used to hate pastry for a very long time. I thought it was like I was like, why would you pay $4 for a croissant? It doesn't make sense. It just tastes like butter. And then I like grew up and matured a little bit, and also realized the amount of work that goes into all pastry. Um, I love like a real good croissant. I love making macaroons,
Mm.
and I love making cinnamon rolls. And I would say I like making more stuff, but like my pastry skills are like, I'm completely self-taught. So right now, everything I've ever made is like, I had to figure out how to make it and just kind of go with it. So yeah, right now I would say those are the two things. I love eating a really good croissant, like a super fancy one. Uh,
Mm.
and then I love making cinnamon rolls and macaroons and croissants.
So okay, so you said that you're kind of a self-taught baker, self-taught cook. What would you say was like the biggest thing that helped you figure out how to how to make the various pastries that you serve at Ned's? Because I mean, you make some great stuff. So I mean, what would you say was the number one thing that really helped you pick up the craft and learn how to do it well consistently?
The number one thing, I would say it's just seeing other restaurants do it well, do things well, and then I learn their stories, and most of the stories I hear are not, yeah, I went to culinary school and I learned how to make blah. It's I worked in restaurants and I just wanted to learn how to make this thing, and so I learned how to make it. And so that was just seeing that they're like, normal people doing extraordinary, what I feel like is an extraordinary thing. I was like, okay, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. So that was a huge motivator. Also, just the fact that, like, growing up, I believed that, like, a man was someone who could just, like, build chairs and,
Hmm.
like, do stuff around the house. And I didn't identify with that because I was like, man, I'm completely useless with a tool in my hand. But if you ask me to make you food, like I can do that. And I love to do that. So that was a big motivator too, is I love learning how to make things, and it's the thing I like to learn how to make is food.
Yeah. All right. Well, great. And a great question, Brandon, to get us started off with. So Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you because I know that you have some questions for me as well. So yeah. Why don't you hit me with a question?
All right, Doug, I'm going to ask you the question that I asked you earlier. What are your overall thoughts on Nedzas?
Yeah. So I have to say that I did not know Nedza. I mean, I knew of Nedzas. I had heard about the waffle truck coming through campus and doling out ice cream and really like positive messages. I'd heard about that, but I never managed to catch y'all at the right time. I keep finding myself having to like hunt you down, like find you at some places, Joe. But right after y'all opened up the storefront out at 5 Points, I just love the fact that walking in, it's the most laid back restaurant I've been in a long time, which is really saying something, especially now in during slash post COVID. Okay, well, not post COVID times, but like in the middle of COVID times. Because I mean, it's just so relaxed. I love the fact that you walk in and everyone is so friendly. You've created this atmosphere of like positivity and just really nice, friendly vibes. In terms of food, I love the fact that because you have that really calm, nice atmosphere, uh, when you see something like a fried chicken peach cobbler biscuit or a fried chicken peach cobbler ice cream cone, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That fits. It's really weird because you do some crazy food, you serve some crazy food at Nedz's, but I think the kind of calm atmosphere pairs really well with the kind of out of this world outrageous food concoctions.
Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, yeah. So going into a question that so go into another question from Ben Tankersley, friend of the show, and Ben wants to know. So you've had the waffle truck for how many years? How many years have you been operating the cart slash truck on campus?
Started in March of 2016, so it's 4.5 years.
Okay, so Ben wants to know, how has it been since starting a true brick and mortar location? Like, what was your process to get to there? What is it like now that you're open? And I mean, to a certain extent, what are the benefits of one? What are the benefits and cons of a brick and mortar location when compared to a traveling cart slash truck?
Um, I'll address. So your question, just to reiterate, was
Yeah,
what has it been like since opening? Pros and cons to being in a store.
yeah, pretty
Is that
much.
it? Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Since opening, man, our opening day was insane. And so when that went, so like our to give you an idea, I anticipated serving like 100 people opening day, and we served like 400, which was like awesome. And we had a catering event. I definitely loaded us up, and it was a wild freaking day. So opening day was crazy. That was a Saturday, August 15th, and then Sunday, August 16th was also insane. And so I thought every day was going to be like that. I was like, wow, like we are so busy. It's awesome. Like we can't make food fast enough. And then the week hits, and it's like complete drop off. And it's just like, holy cow. Is this the pandemic? Is this like all the people that came this weekend are friends and family? And like now I just Are we starting out? Like, what is this? So since opening, I've had to learn like how to like continuously adjust instead of like doing a big event, because a food truck and a restaurant are totally different. Your restaurant's there all the time. A food truck I'll pop up when I open, like when I first started in 2016. I'd open up and there would automatically be like 400 people there, and it was awesome. But I didn't really have to do anything to get the people there. I would just show up at an event where people were, and people would just buy my stuff. It was great.
Yeah.
Now I've got to convince people to walk in, which is different, but a lot more rewarding, I think. So, um, just figuring out like what works for us, because what works for us is not like a typical donut shop and biscuit shop. Like I grew up in Gainesville, Georgia, and in Gainesville, biscuit shops would open at like 6 a.m. and they would serve until like 10:30. And there's other biscuit shops that open up at 8 and close at 2. There's donut shops that open up at 5 a.m. and don't close or close at noon. It's like there's a weird balance, and just figuring out what worked for us was a constant like adaptation, instead of like doing it one day, taking a week off, doing it another day, taking a week off. It's now like every day I have to adapt a tiny bit just to get better. So um, that's what it's been like, is like constantly just being like, okay, how do we do better every single day? What was the second question?
Well, I mean, it was more of just like pros and cons
Oh, pros and cons. Okay, yeah.
of a brick and mortar versus a food truck, which you kind of touched on with the location aspect of things.
Yeah, I mean my least favorite thing about having a food truck was people calling me constantly asking me where my store was, and I was like, I don't have a store. It's a food truck, and that just told me I needed a store. But not being able to serve people during the day and only having like limited amounts of data to work around, that was really frustrating with the food truck. The upside to a food truck is it's cheap. I mean, if you don't pay a big rent, you don't have a giant rent to pay, you don't have big staff, like labor, your labor's low. Your food costs are super low because you don't use a supplier, you use like Kroger.
Mm-hmm.
Or Sam's or Restaurant Depot. That's the upside to a food truck. It's just cheap. The downside to a food truck is if it rains, no business. Most of our business was catering. COVID hit. All of our business died. It's very weather dependent. It's very hourly dependent. Like it just doesn't work well, in my opinion, for what we wanted to do. The restaurant is you can set your hours, you can set the expectation of the customer, you can, there's so much more that you can do. And if you mess up one day, you don't have to wait like a week to fix the problem. You can fix it immediately and change it for the next day, which we're like, I mean, there's a million more problems when you have a brick and mortar, but it's easier to fix, in my opinion, because you have a lot more data to go off of.
Yeah. I think that's a very fair point. So kind of similar side, but to lighten things up a little bit. David Cowan, he wants to know if now that you have this brick and mortar location, have you had any crazy stories arise yet? And if so, what are some of your favorites? What are some of the notable ones? And if you need to take it back to the days before the brick and mortar location, by all means, that's fair game as well.
No, man, I have a lot of stories already. So I'll just tell you a few. Number one, so opening day was August 15th. And we had a catering event we were supposed to do in Statesboro like August 1st, which was our original opening date. And then things just like, like our tabletops weren't in, our counters weren't in, our electricity wasn't working, our AC wasn't working. Like we had to move everything back 2 weeks. So this catering event in Statesboro was August 1st. They moved theirs back to August 15th. like literally the same time we moved our opening date back. So it's in Statesboro, like
Yeah.
I said, and it's like, okay, that is a long way to go to feed 300 people, which was what they hired us for. Um, and worry about the because like I can't not be at the restaurant opening day, and I'm usually at these big catering events. I'm almost always there just to make sure it's like it flows, it works well, people are happy. Um, but I wasn't there. So opening day starts. We open at 7 a.m. I have like more nerves than I've ever had in my entire life, and I get a call at 11 o'clock. The catering event starts at noon. At 11 o'clock, my guy who was in charge of it is like, Joe, you need to answer. You need to, like, I need to talk to you. So I answer and I go, Josh, what's up? And he goes, I left the waffle makers in Athens.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but man.
It was like, and I'm in the middle. There's like 10 orders up, and you're just like, I'm like, what? Because it's not like a normal waffle maker. You know, if you
Yeah.
forgot ice cream, it would have been fine. It's like, go to Sam's and buy more ice cream. You know, like that'll be okay. Or if it was spoons, like go buy spoons. If it was waffle containers, we'll just buy different containers. But it was the waffle iron, and I was like, I can't help you. Like I can't drive to Statesboro right now because I'm in the middle of making food. So that was a freaking crazy day. Like 4 days after we opened, I've never really let people make my food, except like it's been me. I cook everything, I prep everything, I clean everything, do it all. So teaching people how to make food has been interesting, and like I think it was like the 6th day we were open, we had a girl who pulled bacon out of the oven and got like a 3rd-degree burn on her arm. And I was like, I have to learn how to file a workman's comp, like a workers' comp
Yeah.
claim. And I have to take care of this girl who's got a 3rd-degree burn on her arm. It was like, these are not things that I like ever had to worry about. So that's a big one. Those were 2 big, like off the top of my head, pretty wild. We've had some like amazing luck with our customers being forgiving and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, they open a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic. It's not easy, A, to open a restaurant, B, to open a restaurant in the middle of a pandemic, and C, almost like 95% of the staff I hired had 0 restaurant experience. And so teaching them like basic stuff has been like unbelievably tough. Mm-hmm. And customers are very forgiving of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is definitely one of the benefits of. I cannot speak for all restaurants, period. But I really also cannot speak for all restaurants in Athens. But it feels like the collegiate community, especially because college students really do know you. They do know your brand. So I think you're one of the few restaurants I could see opening in the middle of a pandemic, where I think you have enough goodwill to make it through some of those hard times. Because you obviously have like some backing. But yeah, and great question, David. Big fan of that question. All right, so Joe, I actually wrote a question for you. I've been trying to get out of my comfort zone, trying to write a couple questions. So Joe, the Pixar classic, the film Ratatouille, has this recurring message that, quote, anyone can cook. Do you agree with this sentiment? And if so, or if not, what do you think separates a good cook from a great cook? Or someone who cannot cook?
Anybody can cook. When I met my now wife, she would literally burn rice. Like, not fried rice, like boiled rice, she would burn it. And I was just like, I don't know. I didn't know that was even physically possible. But she did it. She was always like, "Man, I can't cook. I hate cooking." And I was like, "Honey, it's not that you can't cook; it's that you don't have patience. Cooking is a game of patience and adapting. It's like, to me, it's like a sport where, like, if you're losing or you're doing something wrong, like your dish is burning or whatever it is, there's almost always a way to fix the problem that you created, and it's just a matter of like figuring out how to do it." So since then, she's become like, she makes all the meals at home, and it's awesome. Um, I believe absolutely anyone can cook. You just need to have patience with it, and over time, you're gonna, like, nobody can cook right away. No one like picks up, a dish or a cookbook and knows everything. It just takes time. So give yourself time if you suck at cooking.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that sentiment. I too, when I started like cooking for myself, I have I have burned several pans of fried rice. I know you were saying just regular rice, but fried rice is the one thing that to this day I just cannot get right. So I just find it funny that you brought up rice.
Okay, question. How do you do your fried rice?
So I think the biggest thing is I don't use like cold rice, and I think that's the secret is you have to let it actually cool down. I will go straight from pot of water right into a skillet,
It's hard and
and
it's gross.
yeah, yeah.
You gotta make like 10 pounds of rice,
Mm.
boil it, put it in the fridge, and then whenever you feel like making fried rice, just take it out and throw it in the pan.
All right, I'll make that note.
It's easy. Rice is it's the easiest thing ever,
Yeah,
and it's cheap. So if you mess up, it's like, whatever.
that is fair. That is fair. Rice is the college kid staple. But yeah. All right, Joe. Well, I'm gonna throw it back to you. Why don't you hit me with another question?
What is something, man? All these questions are Ned's based, so I'm sorry.
It's
Uh,
okay.
what is something that you think Ned's could do better? And viewers, what is something that Ned's could do better constructively? Not just make, grilled cheese. Like, what is something that I could do that we could do better? What do you love about it?
Yeah. So I think so. I said earlier. I think you have a really good way of balancing absurdly simple things like just a really good donut. Um, uh, I think you have a really good balance of something simple like a really good donut with something insane like I think I saw one place where you made a 1 pound cookie with like
Oh,
Reese's
no.
cups and oh excuse me, a pound and a half cookie with Reese's and Butterfingers in it. Um,
It was wild.
so yeah, I mean I think you know how to like balance things well. Uh, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big savory guy, so I think that one of the best things that you have on your menu is the fried chicken peach cobbler. Uh, is it a biscuit or is it an ice cream cone?
It's a biscuit.
It's a biscuit. I thought it was a biscuit. I just didn't know. Um, but but I personally would like to see more of those like really kind of out there like sweet and savory combos. Um, like
Oh, we need to do a special. By the way, Hannah Day, yes, it is fun to make, and it's delicious. And it's
you know, Miss Hannah Day. She's actually a friend of mine from Pennsylvania. So I mean, I know that she has not had the privilege of trying out Nedzas, but maybe just throw out one week, just be like, hey, what's up? This week at Nedzas, we're gonna do fried rice 5 different ways across 5 different days.
that would be hilarious. I can do like an Asian inspired biscuit. I'm gonna do more like specials. We're just
Yeah,
trying to figure out what the heck we're doing right now.
yeah, I got you, I got you. But yeah, I mean, I love seeing those really weird combinations come together and work. So, I mean, that's probably the best thing I would say. I would like to see more of. Maybe a challenge. I could see y'all maybe doing an eating challenge.
Yeah. Oh, I used
Maybe
to
an
do those.
yeah, maybe an eating challenge. Maybe you do like a 5 pound loaded cookie with like with like uh with like a king sized Hershey's bar and like Reese's cups stuffed inside of it, and you have like 20 minutes to eat the whole thing, no drink.
Wow. I think someone would die.
I'm pretty sure they would, but
It would be so,
people would try it.
yeah.
Charge
Good idea.
charge like $25 for it or more, and you know, if you win, it's free, and you get like a T-shirt or maybe not. And if you lose, you pay for the thing. I don't know.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
David Cowan does bring up a good point, though, with that. If you're going to do that, probably make people sign a waiver. And as Ben Tankersley pointed out, he did get diabetes from that. So
Yeah, food
kudos
challenge is
to.
fun.
Yeah, no, if you ever do a food challenge, I'm totally here for it. But yeah, kind of going off of that. So like I said, you kind of straddle this line of there's no such thing as, or you can't have too much of a good thing, and less is more with with a lot of the recipes that y'all do at the restaurant. So, I mean, do you think that there is one school of thought that's better than the other? Do you think it's better to have the mentality of everything and the kitchen sink, or let's just keep things simple? Do you have a preference on one school of thought?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I first started Nedza's, we did the waffle with ice cream. We would add cookie dough, and it was just like add as many toppings as you want. And that was when I had a crazy sweet tooth, like a sweet tooth that doesn't make sense for a normal person, let alone a diabetic. So it was like I loved that. It was just like bam, throw everything on that waffle. But now I'm kind of I feel like I'm going to sound like a snob, but my palate, like my desires for food have changed, and like the old-fashioned way of making things, in my opinion, is the better way. And keeping it simple is also potentially the better way. However, there are some food items like our fried chicken biscuit where I'm like, man, that's a full meal and it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like our donuts, like our cinnamon brown sugar donut, I think is just dope. The ice creams that we make are, I think, simple, but we're getting to where we're adding stuff. If we're going to have a bunch of stuff loaded in an item, I want it to be homemade and handmade. So I think that's kind of where it's a hybrid of the kitchen sink plus like keeping it kind of simple. If we're going to venture out from keeping it simple, I want us to be like, it's a homemade, passed down generations recipe.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of happy that you brought up the. Okay, I'm with this comment.
We're getting beer and wine, and the liquor license. I'm actually Okay, so on the down low, I'm part of this like community in Athens. It's like an underground community, and we host these like cocktail what's it called when you.
The only thing I can think of right now is mixer, but I don't think that's what you're talking about.
It's a oh my god, when you go to a place that's not supposed to be a bar that is a bar and you're not.
Oh, like a speakeasy.
Yeah, so it's very similar to like a community speakeasy, and there's like a certain amount of us that are part of it, and we just like play around with really cool cocktails. So Ben, one day I'm gonna open a bar and have like just dank cocktails.
Oh man. So kind of going back to this, talking about, if you're going to do crazy things, try and make it homemade, try and make it the best that you can. So something that y'all have really, I think, really excelled at is making these really weird kind of out there ice cream flavors and cookie flavors. So can you tell me like what is so like what led you to make like Nedza's I
Nedza
just
pie.
yeah, what led you to make the Nedza pie flavor of ice cream? What leads you to make certain ice cream flavors? And then I'm sorry, but what in the Sam Hill made you think to stick like cookies and candy bars into cookies?
So the ice cream question,
Yeah.
I have gotten a lot of inspiration from other ice cream companies in the like around the country, little creameries where it's like a small shop that makes their own ice cream. I'm fascinated by that and the flavors that they're making. I didn't realize that people were doing this until recently, and then I started making ice cream in March when the pandemic hit.
Hmm.
Um, so I just got into like fancy flavors, like textures. How do they go together? I started reading all these crazy cookbooks where it's like food needs to take you on a journey. It's not just like, oh, like why do you like a Reese's or why do you like this? Well, it's not just because you like peanut butter. It's because you like a certain type of crunch. You like the sensation of biting into the chocolate. You like the aftertaste. You like that it starts salty on the front or on the back, like whatever it is. There are things that you don't even realize that are subconsciously happening that make you love what you love. And I like really was diving into the science behind it and understanding food more. And so that's kind of where these creations happen. So Nedza Pie happened because I had this pie that I was making for all my friends, and they were like, "Dude, this pie is like phenomenal." I was like, "Okay, well, I want to see how it makes. How does this thing go in an ice cream? Is it delicious?" Because I was already making like cheesecake and other type of cakes that would go into my ice creams, and they held up really well. I was like, "Well,
Hmm.
let's just try to put the Nedza pie in there," and it was like so good. And so I was like, "Man, I just want to like I'm gonna make this ice cream." And so I created a cool syrup that went in with it, and yeah. So texture is actually like one of the first five. I think it's number two. Texture is the second thing I believe that you notice when you're eating a food item, and it's like one. It's obviously one of the most important. So Harriet, yes, texture is
Yeah,
number.
yeah. I completely agree with what Miss Harriet said. Because I think a lot of people do kind of underplay how important texture is because it is something that will throw you off in an
Yeah.
instant.
Well, texture and color, like
Yeah, that's true.
are huge. Like if I were to say, here's a vanilla ice cream, but it was chocolate colored, you'd be like, you would taste chocolate. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing. And if I did a blind taste test on you and gave you a red wine and a white wine, most people can't tell the difference. It's beautiful. Like texture and color do a lot for food. And so I'm like learning how to do it well, how to make my food well. Because like, in my opinion, if you were to add like Reese's with all of these other things and throw it in an ice cream, it would just be this overwhelming sweet thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
It would, in my opinion, it wouldn't be good. So finding a way to mix all that stuff together, I nerd out over it.
Mm. Well, okay. So Katie Kenjimi, so Katie asks, you've made all these crazy flavors of ice creams, of cookies, of everything. What are the flavors that you tried but that failed miserably? Or
Well,
like, do you have any that like stick out as like I will never do that again?
man, yeah, you asked me this question. I should have thought more about it. Man, I don't know. I'm adventurous, but I'm not like. Here's an example. There's a company out west that did like a pig's blood ice cream, and that's like a
Yeah, I'm
crazy.
not here for that.
I'm not either. So it's like a crazy adventurous idea. I would never do that unless I'm sure I could make it amazing, and I've like could communicate with the public that it's actually really good. Um, Most of the stuff that I've made tastes really good. Like, so here's an example that most people wouldn't even think of. One time I did a coffee ice cream with candied cherries and chocolate chunks. And you would never think to have cherry with ice cream. I hate cherries, but for some reason I could not get enough of this ice cream. It was so good.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that we make, I mean, I've had some bad batches for sure, but they're not like it was an error in the baking more than it was an error in the flavor. So I've never really had something that I was just like, yeah, that's horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, so Joe, so kind of I think I've got my final question for the night. I think we've had a really good time, but I just have one more question. You seem like a very outgoing, adventurous guy. You're someone who loves mountains, which I wish you'd just written that in your bio. I love life. I love hard work. I love mountains. I think it would have flowed very well. Um, you said multiple times, you're a very adventurous guy. So I just want to know, what do you think differentiates the thrill that you get from going on a huge hike, from doing some crazy out of this world trip? What differentiates that thrill from the thrill of owning your own business, from the thrill of starting your own business? What do you think differentiates them, and what draws you to each respectively?
Um, so my wife does not understand this. Like, I love a hard hike where like I will have no, I'm not in shape to do this, but I'll just put a 50-pound pack on and go hike like 25 miles and be miserable. I love it. I don't know why. It's like masochism. It's weird. I think it's just the overall, like, so for me, with being in the mountains and hiking, the reward comes from working really hard and getting to the top. With business, if it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. It would be boring. It wouldn't feel fulfilling if you like were successful. It's like it's meant to be really difficult. So I would compare it in that way, in that it's like sometimes when you're on a big hike and you've never done it before, you're struggling and you want to cry and die and you're starving and you have no idea where the end is, but you're just like, you just got to keep going. And so with business, it's the same way. It's like, man, this is really hard. There's no answer to this question I have. Nobody knows how to help me, but I have to figure it out. And the way I figure it out is I just keep moving forward in the hopes that you do understand and learn and I guess come out on top. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a phenomenal answer. Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on tonight. I had a great time. Did you have fun?
Doug, I had a blast. You're the man.
Well, good deal. Good deal. Thanks for being on, man. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for being active. Y'all have been great the last few weeks. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in to Tea with Doug G. Be sure to keep up with everything else Viter Media's got going on. New episodes of Saying the Skeen every Wednesday. But yeah, until next week, he's Joe Nedza. I'm Doug Gooden, and this has been the Tea.
Doug,
y'all have a great night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.